Hello and welcome to Capital Impact Strategies. I'm Craig Ivy and I've got Ashley Terlitza here with me today. Ashley, thanks for taking some time.
Absolutely.
Uh, this is in connection with an email that we sent out to clients and others where we detailed a recent acquisition of a wealth management firm, Linscomb Wealth, which is Ashley and I's former employer, by a Ohio-based Huntington Bank shares. So while that's the most recent, there's obviously been a lot of activity like that, even just this calendar year. So thought it might be a good time to for Ashley maybe to share some of her experience as a young financial planner, kind of starting out more independent and then moving to, the larger corporate machine. So yeah, thanks for doing this, Ashley. I don't have this kind of experience in my background. I have obviously worked with banks, but it was, not a fiduciary model. So
Sure.
yeah, so tell us a little bit about younger Ashley.
Yeah, no, glad to do it. So it's funny, you see headlines like we've had recently with banks buying up smaller firms or investment advisors. And I mean, it's certainly not a new strategy or thing that we've seen out there that would end up happening with a bank. So just a little background on myself. I have always been in the registered investment advisor fiduciary space. Started out actually interning while I was a student at the University of Houston, and then finished my degree and stayed on there as a planner. So when I first started with this firm, it had been founded as an independent
Okay.
fiduciary fee only registered investment advisory firm. They were purchased by Compass Bank a few years before I joined. But I spent, the early days of my career as a planner there. And what I would say is, at least at the beginning, the relationship with the bank was very good. Compass was very willing to let the original founding members continue running the day-to-day operations of the investment advisory firm. So it was their vision, their planning philosophy, their investment portfolios. It really felt like an independent firm, even though we had this bank that owned us, but was really sort of out on the periphery. The staff didn't feel it, the clients didn't feel it. They really maintained, I think, the culture and the heart and soul of what that firm was, at least up until Compass then was acquired by an even larger bank, which is where you
Right.
start to, right, see some things changing.
So when it was kind of Texas-based bank, it was, they kind of a hands-off approach. We love what you're doing, continue to do
Right.
it. And then, yeah, so I do remember the Compass being purchased by a Spanish bank, BBVA, and
BBVA.
you were saying that that's kind of when things started to change, I guess, more rapidly, or that was more noticeable.
More rapidly, more noticeable. And again, I was very young. I was at the beginning of my career, so I wouldn't have been privy maybe to some of the
Oh, sure.
first rumblings that would come down the line. But watching it unfold, you had this big announcement. BBVA has acquired Compass Bank. The first thing they do is start rebranding. Of course, all of the local branch offices get
Sure.
new signage, new names. It wasn't long after that our trio of founding members departed. Took a lot of expertise, obviously, a lot of the mentoring and the hands-on guidance, obviously left with them. We were renamed as BBVA Wealth Solutions, so keeping in with that kind of corporate flagship branding. Everyone's job titles got reworked. We had obviously kind of your business cards and your signage and all
Sure.
those good things
Yeah.
went along with it. That for me felt very like a big change that,
Sure.
all of a
Yeah.
sudden now here's this corporate name we've got and we're tied into this huge organization. And whereas before it felt very warm and personal, very boutique, very high end, now we start to have some of that identity blending
Sure.
in with this larger bank. And that happened not long after the purchase by
Yeah.
BBVA.
So yeah, the identity of an organization can feel compromised when name change, leadership change, those kind of things.
Well, and
Um,
then we had bank appointed chief investment or chief executive officer, well, eventually chief investment officer as well,
right,
president. So kind of all of your uh, management, C-suite roles, whatever you want to call them, were people who had really a strong banking background being brought in by BBVA to fill these roles that had been vacated. And, you know, maybe they really good in banking, really strong in banking, or have a nice, resume in that area, but not a lot of experience running and a registered investment advisor. What does that mean? What does fiduciary
sure,
mean? How is it that we're working with clients? The whole fee only concept. We were a true fiduciary, so not product driven. We weren't selling things. We weren't getting, revenue credits for,
sure,
selling an annuity or selling whatever you may
right.
have. So that again, more of that culture, more of that leadership change. It felt at that time like we really headed in a different direction than we had previously under that really bank
Sure.
driven leadership roles.
So I know you kind of spoke about the culture, the leadership, some of the more longer tenured advisors. Do you feel like it's at that point that the clients started to feel some of this?
Yeah. So, and after the founding partners left, some of the senior advisors tried to make it work, stick around. My clients here,
Sure.
my books here. Eventually, they start to leave as well. So you had some client loss at that point. People who were very loyal to their advisors going along, but for the clients who stayed, it really created a vacuum because not only now have you lost the leadership, but you've lost these really tenured advisors who understand planning, understand the value of planning, really know what personalized high-end service looks like.
Sure.
It created a vacuum where in the past, planning was central to everything we did. It was very holistic. We were running cash flows, estate analysis, all the income tax, social security, I
Right.
mean, everything, right? That now you've got this vacuum, for lack of a better word, that
Sure.
no one here values this. No one here is really wanting to do this. You've lost a lot of the experience and the people who appreciated it. You have some young planners. I was one of those planners who, we're ready, we're talented, we're eager to learn, and there just wasn't a lot of support for that planning function once you started to have the advisors step out of the
Right.
picture.
Well, and so I don't know what the process is like transitioning into kind of being part of a bank, but my experience working with and around banks is they really love the product world. And so that
Yes.
aligns with more like a broker dealer and somebody, that operates in that vein. Did that
We
start to
saw
kind of
that.
creep over into,
Yes, we ended up dual registered. So
okay,
um, under a broker dealer slash, our former. And so that was interesting to watch as well, because all of a sudden now the people who remained were being asked to get their insurance license, or, you
right,
need to pass this securities exam. We were all CFPs, and originally that was sort of the highest credential that we really
sure,
held ourselves proud, very proud of that fact that we were all CFPs. And then, BBVA brings in this dual registration, and all of a sudden now you've got these cross-selling channels that have opened up with the private banking group where, we've got these referral schedules where advisors can now be compensated for, recommending a mortgage or a CD. In fact, one of the
uh,
things that transitioned into the planning group was using our financial planning software to mine for data. So, you know, here are the advisors, but we would like you planners to go in now and tell us who all has a mortgage at a certain level, or who all has, a certain amount of cash maybe sitting in a checking account that could be a CD. And then you get these uh, comp referral, schemes of
Sure. Incentivized to, yeah,
incentives, right? And so for me who grew up in that fiduciary space, the way I approach client relationships, and I know you're the same, Craig, and that's kind of how we've built our whole model here is we're sitting on the same side of the table. Everything that we recommend is purely in the best interest of a client. There's no conflict of interest. We're,
right.
it's true fee only fiduciary, but for an advisor to be put under that dual registration model all of a sudden, well, that broker dealer side is a much lower bar to cross as long as it's not inappropriate for a client. I can recommend that they, take that cash and buy a CD. I may get a little kickback from that. Everyone's happy, right? It felt very counter to how I
Sure.
was wanting my career to go and the way that I wanted to be able to interact with clients.
It's been a while since I've been in and around the banking world, so I don't remember a lot of the the naming strategies, but share of wallet was always
Oh,
a
yes.
big one where they had done studies where, we typically only have 1/7 of a household, so going back to the data mining, that's a way that they can kind of, okay, well, this person has it. So I can understand you know, the hesitancy or oh, this is not how I was raised.
Not how
I
I
came
was
up in this
raised.
business different.
Well, and then, staff continues to leave. I left at some point in here.
Sure.
Eventually, BBVA gets acquired by PNC Bank, and I would say at this point, everyone that I would have known has exited that whole firm. But to my knowledge, I'm not sure what the wealth management offering is.
Right.
Today it's such a culturally different offering or approach that it tends not to mesh well with especially a large multinational or
Right.
nationwide even banking system. There's just a lot of mismatches there.
Well, I even think about like you talked about mortgages, and I think about like just the kind of interest rate environment that we're in. I mean, that seems kind of a place where somebody might have a conflict.
Sure. So, you and I maybe meet with a client and we're running detailed cash flows. They want to buy a house. Maybe mortgages are what, 6.5, 7 now. It could go either way, right? Do you pay cash? Do you do a
Yeah.
mortgage? But being free and independent to really analyze that. We're looking at cash flows. We're looking maybe at some tax consequences. We're looking at
Right.
available liquidity in the portfolio. Maybe rebalance comes into that. There's a lot that we could talk someone through
Sure.
in terms of how do you make the best decision without any outside influence or bank directives. But again, dual registered advisor who's got a private banking partner that would really love a mortgage referral creates some different considerations where again it's not inappropriate. It wouldn't be a bad choice for the person, but is it the best? Is it optimal? Is it
Right.
truly transparent?
Yeah. Well, thanks for taking some time to share that. That's a unique experience, not one that I've been through to kind of see the stages of, it sounds like almost dismantling of what was previously there. So thanks for sharing that. And I'm sure the people that are listening appreciate kind of the
That's my
historical
pleasure.
view. Yeah. So, yeah, if anybody has any questions or wants to talk, we're happy to sit down, and thank you very much for watching.